Hi everyone, I'm Allison Johnson and I lead customer and executive marketing here at Okta. And today joining me is James Dolph, the CISO of Guidewire. Welcome, James.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, recently, as you can imagine, we've had a lot of feedback around AI. So today's
You
session,
don't say, huh?
I know, yeah. Have you heard of it? Yeah.
Never heard of the stuff.
Yeah. So today, our session is about AI and how it's impacting cyber attacks, but also just the overall impact of AI. So before we get into that, I just thought it would be great for our folks here joining us to hear a little bit more from you about your role at Guidewire and what's it's like being the CISO there.
Yeah, so I've been at Guidewire now for almost 5 years, and I joined in the middle of the pandemic, which was like a fun time to join, but it was a really interesting time at Guidewire. We were in this transition to making our product a SaaS service from a long history of having a really well adopted on-premise software. What they needed though is they needed someone who understood how to make a security team for a SaaS company. And so I had the honor of being able to basically build that out for the company and all the different functions that entails, and take ideas that I've had from previous places I've worked, and now we're running on all cylinders, right? And then I get to think about stuff like how does AI impact an enterprise software company?
Absolutely. So how has it changed from your first job and how you were thinking of security and your function into your role today as a CISO?
Yeah, so I started out in the sort of like offensive security pen testing kind of world. So I was like, I've always been a very curious person who was good at breaking stuff, and I really liked that challenge of like, tell me what your worst nightmare is and I'm going to make it come true. But as it evolved, my career, I got more into product security. So, I had a developer background and I understood how code and software was built. I was like, look, I'm finding all these problems. It's kind of also fun to like think, how would I prevent someone like me from doing that? And then start thinking about it in a broader context of like enterprise software and ecosystems and other things. And that was really illuminating. It was like a really fun time in my career to sort of build that up. And then later, I started having this aspiration, like, what's it like to run the whole like end to end?
Yeah.
And, I had, the opportunity with Guidewire, and it was, I wasn't really sure whether it was going to be for me, like younger me who was like, offensive security guy probably would have been like, that's like the sellout role and like no fun. But for me, it felt like a really good fit. I got to like flex parts of my, skill set that I didn't really get to use in other times. So it was pretty cool. I get to be my whole self.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that landscape has evolved a lot from where you started to where you are now. Now that you are kind of leading your security team and organization, what are some of the things that might keep you up at night?
Oh, like everybody asks this question, like what keeps you up at night? And I don't know, like I'm a pretty level-headed person. Anybody that knows me, like I don't stress about things, but there are certain things that I think are more or less important. I, as someone who works at an enterprise software company that's SaaS, think a lot about product security. I think it's one of those things where you have to continuously invest sort of forever, because that's the product that you're selling to your customers, and maturing that. And not just from like an academic correctness perspective, but how do you make the software more resilient, and how do you make it easier for your customers to get secure outcomes. And I know you folks think a lot about this stuff too, and we've all had lots of conversations about this in the forums that you all put together. Like how do we think about making our customers successful from a security standpoint, and what's that user experience of security?
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, you're a member of the Okta CISO forum, so thank you so much. And it's a great forum where customers like you share what's top of mind. And as you mentioned, we talk like how much friction is just enough? How do you make sure that someone is secure, but also that you aren't tasking them with 95 things before they can log in to do something that takes a minute. And so, it's interesting, when we were at the forum last, you shared, one of the challenges is you have partners like myself in marketing who wants to use AI. We want to use all the tools to get our jobs done quicker and faster and do more.
Sure.
But that also comes with some inherent risk of bringing all of these new applications and technologies into your portfolio. So I think as a CISO, it's probably challenging to, how do you say yes and keep up with this pace of innovation, but also not open yourself up to more like security vulnerabilities?
I think at this point, everybody's going to want to use AI for everything, because every company has got some compelling AI use case that they're using. And I do think it's going to be a real driver of productivity. So, putting on the business hat, which every CISO really should, you got to think, how do you provide a safe outlet for this type of stuff? And how do you put the right guardrails in place so that there's no reckless behavior? Because people don't want to do the wrong thing. Like nobody's malicious in your company. Your marketing team's not malicious going like, I'd love to exfiltrate all your data and get it out of the company. Like nobody wants to do that. But they do want to get stuff done and they want to do it efficiently. So, early on, we put some guardrails in place and some policies, and then we just started buying AI products that we made available for people to use in a safe way. Yeah. And then we really encouraged people how to use it and build some enablement materials. Like our biz tech team, which is our IT team, did a really great job of building enablement. Like, hey, how do you write prompts for XYZ on this? And which tool do you use for which task? In fact, we just got an email today about a new capability that we put in place, and they're like, here's how this fits into the ecosystem of AI tools that we have and how you might use it. And that's been great. And you're probably alluding a little bit to like, how do we think about it from third-party vendor perspective? Because every single vendor is going to have, if they don't have AI on their roadmap, their board of directors and customers are going to be like, where's the AI? Tell me where the AI is. It's going to be there, but from my perspective, it's not much different than when SaaS companies came out and started, offering, products inside of the cloud, right? People are going to want to use those for obvious reasons, and so you just need to put the right sort of, gates in for your third-party vendor management and your procurement processes, and to make sure you have the right identity controls on there, et cetera, so that people can use the stuff safely.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like you want to be proactive and give people the right information so they can make the right decision. So that's like one of the benefits of AI. Yeah. Now, one of the fears that we've heard around AI is just the impact on cyber attacks. So if you read some of the headlines, there have been some bad actors that can use AI and generative AI to get really savvy. We were just laughing about fake job opportunities with real resumes to then apply for a real job with a fake person. So how do you think about AI and cyber attacks, and is that something that's really top of mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, right now I think it's being used a lot for believability and phishing. So like one of the things that we've seen and stopped a bunch of times is you'll get an email. This email has a whole thread of people that would normally interact within your company. But it's not those people, right? And even though it comes from some really weird email address, you see it and you're like, it's Bob and Sally and Jane, and they're all talking and they had this conversation, and now it's on to me to like take some action, and there's some urgency. Like they always create urgency. Yeah. So I think it's easier to do stuff like that, to like sort of legitimize things or like add this like fake legitimacy. That's like one of the things that I think it's being used. And we all thought it was going to be like spell check that made phishing, a little bit more effective. Yeah. But I think the real interesting stuff is when we get to the point where 0 days are going to start coming out of these models, that'll be a little bit spooky, right? And I'm certain that that's happening behind the scenes somewhere, right? But who's going to waste 0 days on big campaigns? I don't know, but like maybe building custom malware in 0 days is going to be something that we'll all need to think about, but I don't know that it's yet prolific enough. Yeah. Certain it's happening, but I don't think it's prolific enough to like lose sleep over.
So you're not losing sleep. It's not keeping you up at night yet. So that's good.
Yeah, right? You gotta, well, I have little kids, so that's where I lose my sleep.
That's who's keeping you up at night.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Now, the other thing we talked about, so there's cybersecurity, cyber attacks with AI, but there's also just the overall impact that AI has on developers and engineers and security organizations. So how do you think about the impact of AI in that regard?
Yeah, throughout my career, I've had a lot of experience with hyperscale and thinking about, how do you make sure that you build durable processes and how do you build things that will continue? And I look at this, the sort of rise of AI in the enterprise environment as a way that, people are going to become a lot more productive. So the conversations I'm having with my teams are like, what if every engineer was 200% more effective, right? What if we had twice as much code coming out of every engineer? And how would we scale the processes and gates and safety mechanisms and all the things that, our customers expect from us to make sure that we're building, secure software and services. How do we scale that? And I think that there's still some questions around how our side of the AI will work. But I think if I were to say, what's the thing a CISO should be thinking about right now? That's a real important one. Like, how will you scale? Because it's going to be great for software. Software is going to start accelerating in a way that's going to be very exciting, right? It'll be cool. We'll all get a lot of new features, and maybe who knows what the quality will be. That's all yet to be seen. But from a security perspective, where we want to make sure that we do it the right way, there will be some thought that we have to put into the scale factors of this.
Right, like which tasks are the right ones to be growing at this tremendous rate, and then what are the checks and balances to make sure the quality is there?
Yeah, and should it be a person? Should it be an AI? Who should do what? And in some ways, this AI is great for repetitive, high-value work now. Right, it'll change. It's going to get more capable, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that fits into that category in security that can help us to scale. And I wouldn't say any CISO has a zero list of things to do. So if anybody's worried, will we run out of stuff to do, or will security be impacted? None of us are going to have that problem, because there's a huge list of things for us to do. There's no finish line. It's one of those infinite games,
Yeah. Okay, so your career, security, CISO, what advice do you have for aspiring CISOs or someone building their career?
Yeah, the things that weren't apparent to me in my early career were sort of the business value aspects of security and security programs. I was real hot to trot on breaking everything and anything being fair game, and maybe not having as much empathy for engineers and developers as I probably should have. So understanding that in the context of how does it provide business value, and then soft skills, communication skills. I think the job of a CISO in some ways is a multi-translator. So I need to speak to our board of directors, a bunch of people on our executive team, and you can think of them as all different dialects of executive communications. And then even within your own team, there are sort of different dialects. The way that you talk about security to your GRC team might be quite different than you speak with your product security team. And you have to be able to take an idea and translate it into all these contexts to get people aligned on what needs to be done. This very, very important work, and motivate people and make sure that people understand what value it then provides. So it's a communication, right, is just a really, really important thing, I think, for anybody in the security field.
Yeah. Well, it's even great when you talk about security to someone like me, a marketer, because again, it's that communication and the collaboration of taking, big ideas or concepts around AI and then being able to parlay that in a world, a roadmap that aligns with your company vision and things like that.
Yeah. And how do you communicate with your customers then? Because, your customers will have everybody comes from a different perspective on these things. Your customers will have all kinds of different perspectives depending on the structures of their organizations and how they think about security and the risk that they're in. And it's, I think it's important. And security can be accessible. We don't have to gatekeep. We don't have to make this we're all so smart in security. It's too bad, all you people can't figure this out. We can make security accessible, because if people understand security, they'll do the right thing.
Right. Understanding the risk and understanding how clicking on something could be maybe a bad idea.
Yeah, it could be a bad idea. You just don't want them to glaze over and be like, oh my God, this guy's talking again. Right.
We had a customer share that they were trying to be proactive around data resiliency, and then there was a 189-page manual that someone had to read if something was broken. So how do you make sure that you are not over communicating and communicating at the right level?
It was probably written with an LLM, and somebody probably summarized it in an LLM podcast or something like that. That's the only use for a 100 and some page manual like that.
Too many, absolutely. Well, James, is there any other kind of words of advice, or we talked about AI cyber attacks, or with the impact of AI to business organizations and building and scaling. Is there anything else you want to leave folks with?
Yeah, I think, it's important. Another thing that's important is CISOs, and especially if you're part of a product company or everybody is customers, right? But thinking about security as this sort of, intangible product that you sell. It's like part of the extended value proposition. And as a CISO, you should think of yourself as the GM of this product.
Yeah.
And so how do you communicate this in all the different ways it needs to be communicated, and how do you instill this confidence in your customers and back it up? Like make it real, just as if you were a product manager for something more of a traditional product, right? So thinking of security as a product and trust as a product, I think is a good frame of reference for guiding you.
Nice. Very cool. We haven't heard that before. Well, thank you so much, James, for joining us.
My pleasure.
And we will see you guys on the next Executive Talk. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.